So let's go over the first time that I ever attempted an FTMO challenge and the main takeaways or highlights that led to the results that we got. Hey guys, Jeff here with the Forex Journey. I'm just gonna get right into it. But so a couple years ago, we were first getting into trading, and it all sounds exciting, and we got hooked on the concept of making a lot of money in a short period of time. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Basically, it was the whole idea of, making a percentage-based income instead of trading hours for a specific amount of money, which most people out there are basically trading time for money. But in this sense, I mean, you can make the same amount percentage-wise, whether you have $1,000 in your account or $1,000,000 in your account. I mean, I'm simplifying it, but the work is the same amount of work, but the output, you get more money, obviously, the more money you have in your account, but it's more leverageable. And so that's where the whole FTMO prop firm thing became interesting, because back then we didn't have $100,000 to trade with. I mean, we still don't, but the whole idea is that if I'm going to put in the work to trade $1,000 account, why don't I, get the challenge, pass the challenge, and trade with $100,000 instead? I mean, that was kind of the idea. So we basically bought into the online hype, and so we had found, so I say we, I mean, me and a friend of mine, we were kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and we were kind of trading together, and we each kind of found a foolproof strategy on YouTube. And for him, I don't even remember what indicator this was, because this was a few years back. And I just want to remind you guys, we were very green, so please be gentle with your comments. But we found some foolproof strategies, basically, where you had an indicator, and the guy on YouTube said, once this crosses that, enter, and once it dips back in, you leave the trade, and so on and so forth. So they were scalping, I think, on the 5-minute, maybe even the 15-minute chart. So basically, my friend and I, we had a very basic understanding of trading, and we decided to split the cost of the FTMO challenge for the 100K, which it was about $800 Canadian, because we're in Canada. But so we split the cost, and we decided we'd trade together, because that means we could pass twice as fast, right? If you have two people trading on the account. Well, that's what we thought anyway. So we were sold kind of big dreams on the YouTube, and we didn't really have much basic fundamentals down. Most of our kind of experience was trading with EAs and bots and kind of backtesting those kinds of strategies. But we had $1,000, and we basically figured, instead of trading just 1,000, let's dump it into FTMO and try and pass the challenge. And we were basically watching these YouTubers. So back then, 2018, 19, FTMO was still new, and but there were some testimonials coming out of these people who were basically saying that they passed the challenge, and it was this and it was that, and they talked about their strategies, and we're like, well, if these guys can pass it, guys and gals, I mean, we can too, right? Right? So, as I'm sure you've guessed, we did not pass the challenge. So essentially what happened with our first challenge, my friend and I, we actually got up to about 5% in profit. So we were, you start with 100,000 and you need to get to 110,000 to pass. So we actually got to 105,000. Then we each had like a losing streak. We dipped under 100,000, and we stayed at 95,000 for a while, but then we just tanked. And it really showed us how much of this is really psychology. And I know for anyone that's been trading for a long time, or who's a consistently profitable trader, I mean, that's the basics. But we were very new back then, so we didn't really know this stuff. And so it taught us a lot about the psychology of trading, or really it just showed us that the psychology is the thing that we need to work on. Because when you're, so I guess here are my main takeaways. So the first thing is, when you're taking the test, just the idea of taking a test or a challenge or an exam or an evaluation It's stressful. It's more stressful than in practice. Ask anyone, almost anybody, who's preparing or studying for a test. In practice, it's easy. You've got all the time in the world. You may have the answer sheet or whatever. But when you actually get to the test, it's time pressured. You only have a certain amount of time. The test doesn't look exactly like what you practiced for. And it's basically the same thing with this whole FTMO thing. So whatever we practiced isn't actually what came up when we were taking the test. And so, but there's a lot of pressure to pass because you've got the dreams. And I mean, I can only speak for myself, but back then we had the dreams. You know, we were telling everybody about it. We got all excited. And the next thing you know, it's like way harder than we thought. And then there's the time pressure. So you have 30 days to pass the test. And I'm not going to get into the details of all the other rules. Like you have, you know, there's a maximum drawdown and all that stuff. So we were respecting all those rules. But other than the rules, basically the time pressure is a big deal. Because as you're getting closer, that's another big pressure that can come along. As you're getting closer to your time limit, you're going to start ramping up probably the lot size. So you're going to start ramping up your risk so that you can make more and try to hit either the 100,000 or the 110,000. But for us, we were ecstatic when we were over, like for a while we were up 5%, you know, everything was going our way. But when we dipped, well, actually, when we got back down to where we started at 100,000, it really messed with our minds because when you're in a good amount of profit, then you lose that profit. It really screws with your head. And then after that, we dipped into the drawdown. So we got down to 95,000 for like a good while. And we were just kind of +1, -1, +1, -1. And it doesn't feel the same. Like it's a lot more stressful and a lot more emotional when you're in the drawdown and when you're kind of trying to revenge trade and make up for all these losing trades that you made and all this other stuff. And then you're seeing the clock counting down and there's only so much time left to go before the end of the challenge. But like this is a big thing and we were not ready for this at all. We hadn't really practiced that. And another source of pressure for us actually was our expectations for ourselves, right? Because we had the big dreams and, you know, but also the expectations that others had for us because we were telling everybody about this and how awesome it was. And I mean, it is awesome, but we just were not ready. But now that we told all those people, they were holding us accountable, like our friends and family, you know, they were asking for updates. And at first we were up 5%. Everything was great. We're going to pass soon. And the next thing you know, we're losing. And then we failed the test. And, you know, I mean, it's important to share your dreams with others, but, you know, maybe be a little selective with who you share it with. But all that being said, basically, we didn't pass the test. I don't regret taking that test back then, the challenge, but looking back, we really weren't ready. We just got grabbed into the hype that was on YouTube talking about making all this money really fast. They don't really talk about, or at least they didn't back then, they didn't really talk about the dangers or what you need to know before you go into it. And like all these foolproof strategies aren't really foolproof and they don't work necessarily as often as they say that it does. Because if you're watching a YouTube video with someone explaining their strategy, they're basically going to show you the perfect setup, 1 or 2 perfect setups where it works. But there might be, you know, it might work 50 or 55% of the time or maybe even less. But there's a bunch of other times that it doesn't work. So if you don't, you know, if you don't take into account all these things, it might mess with your psychology and you might start not using that plan that you had and just start trading random stuff, which is what we kind of did because we were panicking. We're like, oh, these strategies aren't working. But it's important to stick with your plan. Even if your plan ends up sucking, at least if you stuck to your plan till the end, even if you fail, I mean, that at least you stuck with the plan and then you can make a better plan for the next time. But at the end of the day, it's all about, okay, so looking back on it, here's what sucked for us, what we need to work on, and I'm working on that now. So I actually had to step away from trading for a couple years now because of work and starting a business and all that stuff. But now I'm getting back into it, and I realized all of the things that I was lacking, and I've been working on them. And I have a video series where I'm practicing trading with FTMO rules using software effects. And I mean, sometimes I'll take good trades and sometimes I'll take really bad trades. But it's better to do that in practice and to get those out of the way so that you can improve instead of, not practicing and just going straight into it. So, big picture, it was still a good experience. FTMO is still around, which is pretty cool. So this was about 4 years ago. So very cool stuff. There's a lot more testimonials out there of people that are saying that they passed the test and all that stuff, and they're still around. They've won some awards. So I have another video about that, but that's fine. But so right now I'm on the path to eventually becoming ready to do the test again. But I have a lot more practice than I need to do. And I have, I have a whole roadmap for myself of things that I'm going to be working on. But I can say it here, but short version, I'm going to keep practicing in the simulator until I'm much more comfortable with my strategy and my plan and my risk-reward ratio, because the risk-reward is probably the most important thing. And once I'm comfortable there, I'm going to start a $1,000 account and then trade that account up until basically 2,000 and use the profit money from that account to pay for the FTMO challenge. So if I wouldn't be able to take a $1,000 account over to 2,000, I wouldn't be able to pass the test and then keep the prop for money anyway. So what's the point? So once I've done that, then I would take a free trial, make sure I pass that. And then if I feel that I'm ready, then I can take a challenge. But I hope that makes sense anyway. So guys, thanks so much for watching. I'm going to link at the end of this video to my series where I trade. And again, be gentle there with the comments because I'm still learning. But at least I have some of the basic fundamentals now. But still working on it. But we're all on a similar journey together. And anyone who's profitable now has gone through what I'm going through today. And they've crossed that barrier where they can now make profitable trades more often, and that encourages people like me because it's just a testament to social proof that it's possible. So thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.